Hello, and welcome to Shape Up Your Website, Part 3, Helping Google Find You. My name is Lorraine Ball, and I'm going to be your fitness coach today. I own a company called Round Peg, and every day we work with companies to improve their websites to help them get noticed by search engines, and as a result, their customers. Today's program is a one session in a 5-day web fitness program. Although the programs do work together and help build an overall fitness plan for your business, each of the sessions is a standalone program. So let's get started. Why is it important to pay attention to Google and SEO? Because we know this to be true. The best place to hide a dead body is on page 2 of Google because no one will look for it there. So how do you avoid ending up on page 2 of Google? We're going to talk about SEO basics, what you need to know before you really take on this beast. Number 1, Google is an advertising platform. At the end of the day, we think of them as a search engine, but their objective is to sell advertising. And so they're looking for content to share with people that come to Google that is good and valuable, that will keep those people coming back and encourage them to continue to use the search engine and eventually maybe even click on an ad. And it's important to remember that Google's primary objective is selling advertising. The second thing that you need to know is that Google is smart. They have developed and refined and refined and refined their systems, so you can't really do a lot of the black hat SEO stuff that people could do a few years ago to sort of beat the system. And the truth is, you really don't want to, because gaming the system may drive traffic in the short term, but it won't drive sales. Sooner or later, you're going to start to feel the result of bad copy and bad SEO work. People will come to your site and they will leave. The other thing that's important to know is that beyond just your content, Google is looking at the quality and the construction of your website. It needs to be fast and it needs to be mobile. And this next point is something that people really don't want to hear, but you need to know this. SEO is a marathon. It is not a sprint. This is an ongoing activity. All day, every day, because anytime you let up, anytime you stop paying attention to your SEO, you give your competitors a chance to catch up or pass you. And recognizing that you are competing in a very deep swimming pool. There are between 40 and 60 billion, that is billion with a B, searches every month on Google. It is impossible to win even a fraction of those. I can't guarantee that you'll always be on page 1 for every term, but the R's in are you paying attention to these things can make a huge difference. Doing your homework, setting realistic targets. When I refer to real estate, we're going to talk about location-based search, relevant content, not just for search engines, but for people too, having a steady stream of information, creating relationships online and connecting to other reputable sources. And at the end of the day, SEO only has value if it is ultimately connected to revenue. It's great to be on page 1, but if people come to your website and don't fill out a form and don't become part of your sales process, it's kind of an exercise in futility. So let's start with research. Good research requires that you think like your customer. So if you haven't defined who your customer is, this is going to be really hard to do. You want to think about customers when they're ready to buy. Think about what words they would use if they were searching, not just for a product like yours, and I think there's a good example a little later on in the program, but people will use different words when they're in research mode versus when they are in buying mode. They might browse for best this or best that, but when they're looking to buy, they're going to look for that product or service near them. They want to know that they can buy it or acquire it where they are. The other thing that will be very helpful in your research is the Google Keyword Planning tool. The good news is that the tool itself is free. You don't have to pay to use it, but you do have to have an AdWords account. And you can create an AdWords account and never run an ad, but you have to have a Google AdWords account to use their planning tool. And when you're doing your research and you're looking for AdWords, look specifically for alternatives, because people use different words to describe the same thing. Some people may refer to something as an air conditioner, an AC unit, a cooling unit, an HVAC unit. And so you want to build a good list of alternatives, and you want to compare. You want to look among all of those synonyms, which one has the highest search volume? Which ones are obscure phrases that maybe you use, but no one else does? This is an example of just one of the pages that are available when you do a keyword search. And the cool thing is that you can really focus in. You can look geographically. You can choose English or multiple languages, and you can think about keywords, and I'm going to come back to keywords in a moment. In this instance, we were circling for air conditioning repair, and you can see, as you would expect, high in June, it falls off as you get later in the year, and it comes back up again in April and May. And you can see that air conditioner gets significantly more searches than air conditioning. And the AC unit is kind of in the middle. Central AC is not a very popular term, so it's not bad to use it occasionally, but you're not going to drive a lot of search. The suggested bid tells you how popular that keyword is. And the term that we were really looking for, AC repair, you can see $30 a click. That tells me this is a very popular phrase. A lot of companies want to be on page one. It's going to be very hard to win that search. The other thing that you need to do, and I mentioned it just a moment ago, this idea of negative keywords. This was a search we were doing for a heating and air conditioning company. But some people searching the phrase air conditioner are actually looking for truck air conditioners. They may be looking for Chevy air conditioner or Ford air conditioner. Well, we don't really want those people, and so we'll put in negative keywords to screen out any time a search is being conducted that has truck or car or window unit or portable next to the word air conditioner, to get a much more realistic view of how many searches actually occur. This is another example, and again, what you see is you can download those reports from Google, and you can actually pop them into a spreadsheet. We did this for a client, and we saw some fun things. We were looking both globally and locally because they were a national brand. Auto insurance had tons of searches. And then you get into some of these other phrases, and you see auto insurance cheap and cheap auto insurance actually have exactly the same search quantity. Why? Because Google sees these words as interchangeable. And that's good to know as you're writing your copy, is that if you alternate some of your phrases, Google's smart enough to figure out that these two things are actually the same. The other thing I really like about doing a search like this is sometimes I get ideas for different phrases that maybe I wouldn't have thought about using. The second thing that you can do beyond just Google search is to look for clues in your content. Look at the kind of pages that people are coming to day in and day out. What are they interested in? One of the things that we saw on our website is this article about Dropbox is very popular. We know based on how many people are coming to that page every day that people are searching for information on Dropbox. The best size for your logo, we get good traffic to this page, and what's interesting is we have other posts about logo, but this phrase, size of your logo, clearly comes up higher than some of the others. So look at your keywords, look at your content, and then begin writing more content, more blog posts, richer information on your pages. Be realistic and pick a battle that you can win. You are not going to win every single search. No matter how much work you do, there's always going to be someone bigger and with more resources. So ask yourself, number one, do you deserve to be number one? Do you really have the best content for that particular word or phrase? And if not, one of the things that you can do is begin adding more content. That's where blogs come in, and good quality, well-written blogs. The second thing you need to look at is who are you competing against? And can you narrow your segment and win the narrow segment? So for example, you can look at niche topics. Instead of trying to win web design, maybe you qualify that and you really go after the phrase WordPress web design or small business web design. Or you can narrow your geography, and instead of trying to be a Midwest web designer, dominate Indianapolis. Or if you are actually in a suburban location, dominate the suburban location and see if you can, if there's enough business in that area, really become number one anytime someone in that area comes looking for your product or service. Take the time to figure out where you are now. And you can do this manually, but the problem is that if you are searching from your computer, you're going to see a slightly different search than perhaps your customers might see if they're located in a different geographic location. So to figure out where you are, you probably need to spend a little bit of money and invest in a tool that will pull search engine rankings to give you a comparison that looks like this, that really shows you the keywords that you're trying to rank for, where you are now, and if you're making progress. We used a tool called SERPs, SERPS.com. There's a tool called Raven. There are lots of different SEO reporting tools that will give you good perspective on where you are and how you rank on the most important keywords. Real estate. There is power in local search. You really want to think about, not necessarily, unless you absolutely are a national brand, you really want to think about how you can dominate locally. Why is local so important? Because Google recognizes, whether we recognize it or not, that people want to do business with people locally. They will go nationally if they have to, but they're going to bias towards local. And so Google works hard to present more local options. Thought this was some interesting statistics. Number one, 75% of people who used their phone to get real-time location-based information. We have come to rely more and more on our telephones to find things. No matter where we are, no matter when we are, we hop on the phone and we ask Google to help us find something. 90% of mobile searches lead to action. They lead to someone mapping to the location, which means they want to go there, or ordering something, or making a reservation. So people, if they're looking for things on their desktop, they may be browsing, but typically, if they're searching from their phones, they're ready to buy. And according to the CMO Council, 70% of people who ran a local search via mobile acted within an hour. And so this is really critical. As more people do search on mobile, it becomes more and more and more important to have a mobile responsive site. And if your site is not mobile responsive, you won't show up in any of these searches. There are other ways that you can monitor your position. You can search for your product or service and make sure that you're showing up on the local map listings. Again, these are a list of businesses near me that provide the product or service I'm looking for. You want to get listed, and to do that, you want to search, claim, and update. So you want to search for your company name and look for all of the places where your company has been listed. Whether or not you've created a Google My Business page, Google may have created a business listing for you based on information scraped from the net. And there are lots of other directories that do this too. And so what you want to do is you want to search your name, you want to find listings of your business, and then you want to claim it if you can and say, hey, that's my business, I would like to update the information. And then make sure that you have the newest, most relevant information. You want to make sure that you have consistent contact information. The second thing you want to do is you want to search for your industry and your competitors. Top flooring companies in Denver, top veterinarians in Detroit. You want to make sure that you're on those lists. And if you're not and your competitors are, go to that listing page and see if you can submit your directory listing. You want to be anywhere and everywhere. There are tools that will manage this for you. I don't necessarily think you need to pay to use those tools on a regular basis, but if you are moving retail locations, I would definitely invest in something like Yext Power Listing, at least for 1 year, to clean up any stragglers, any directories you didn't even know you were listed on. You want to submit complete information, hours of operation, directions, parking info. When people go to your listing, it should be as complete as possible. Business descriptions, products, you name it. Everything they need to know along with a link to your website. And then you want to take a look at your own website. And you want to make sure that you're optimizing your website for local search. Go back and read the content on your website. Look at your page titles and your meta descriptions. If you want to win Indianapolis Veterinarian, then don't just title a page Veterinarian, title it Indianapolis Veterinarian. Include references to where you're located in your meta descriptions. Add local photos and encourage reviews. Encourage your customers to write reviews on Google, on Yelp, and on Facebook. Standardizing citations. This is really important, and it may seem like a silly little thing, but 210E Main Street and 210E Main ST are not the same. As human beings, we know they are, but search engines see these as slightly different. And these little variations can really trip you up. So make a decision, how are you going to present your address? With or without your P.O. box? Are you going to do your phone number like this, with 888-Wortman, or are you going to do it as 888-967-8626? It doesn't matter which way you choose, but whichever way you choose, always, 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 everywhere your information appears, that's your citation, it needs to be the same. Okay, we've talked about local and research. Now we really are getting into the meat of what transforms your website into a high-quality website in the eyes of Google, and that's relevance. If you want to win search for a series of phrases, you need to use these words, not necessarily on every page all the time, but regularly in page titles and descriptions, in your page URL. This is something I think a lot of people forget, and I see this a lot in blog posts that have not been set up correctly, and the page URL includes just a reference number for the blog post rather than the blog title. Always make sure you get relevant keywords into your title. Use the keywords in your content. Do not keyword stuff. It should not say, Joe's Veterinary Clinic is the best veterinary clinic in Indianapolis. If you are in Indianapolis and you have a dog or cat and you're looking for a veterinary clinic, our veterinary clinic. No. Not only don't search engines want to read that, but people don't want to read that. The other thing that you can do is if you're writing a long article or a long blog post, get your keywords into your headers. Don't forget to use keywords in image titles and description and the anchor text. Those are the words that you use to link between pages. Let's take a look closer at some of these. When you're doing a page title, this is what the search engines will see. Now, on a WordPress website, we can use a product like Yoast, but on other websites with different types of languages, there are other tools that will create a page title and then a meta description. Things to keep in mind when you are titling your page. Use your keywords up front. People and search engines read from left to right. They assume that the words presented first are the most important. You have about 6 to 8 words. If you go longer, what happens is the search engines start to truncate. They start to cut it off and people don't see it. Every single page on your website needs to have a unique page title. A lot of the SEO tools that you plug into websites automatically name each page the same way, and you have to go in and you have to manually override that. And more importantly, the content on the page actually has to match the title. You can't call a page one thing and then write about something else. That sort of bait and switch crap will get you ignored time and time again. Do you need to put your company name at the end of every page title? I've had some rather long and loud arguments with people over this. If you are trying to build awareness for your company page, if you're trying to establish rankings and associations between your brand and the things that you do, it's handy to put the keyword at the end of the title. For Round Peg, our website has been around for 15 years. We routinely win search. If you search for the phrase round peg, you are going to find us time and time again. And so I am less concerned. If I have room at the end, I will put my company name. If I don't, I won't. With new websites and companies just starting up, I almost always suggest that you use the company name on all your page titles. Meta descriptions. This is the summary that appears underneath your title that tells Google what the page is about. You have about 160 characters. And again, if you go longer than that, you're just going to see a series of dots. You need to have, and I can tell you right now, Australian Shepherd is really the keyword they're trying to search for. You can see the words Australian Shepherd in the URL, and you see it here in the meta description. Other things to remember, you've got about 160 characters. Again, keywords up front. But the other thing that's really important is you're writing for the search engines so they can find you. But if the human beings read this description and it doesn't appeal to them, they're going to skip right over it. It won't do you any good to win search if you're not clear and interesting. Permalinks, I showed you, that was that the URL that is attached to your page. You want to use your keyword or phrase in your URL or your permalink. You want to avoid characters like the ampersand, the question mark, or the exclamation point. You want to use hyphens between words and not underscores. Underscores don't work as well in URLs. Google doesn't read them as well. And don't use capital letters because the URLs are not case sensitive. So this is a permalink, mywebsite.com/elephant-hippo. That's a good way to present information. All right, we've done the titles, we've done the meta tags. Now let's get to the guts of the page, the real meat of your page. You want to write naturally and you want to write often. It needs to be human. It needs to be readable by real people. Don't keyword stuff. You want to go for somewhere between 1% and 3% keyword density. So if the blog post is 300 words long, somewhere between 3 and 9 mentions. Honestly, using a keyword 9 times in a 300-word blog post, I think is going to be too much. So I typically shoot for 1 to 2% max. A good way to round out a blog post and actually make it more interesting both for human beings and search engines to read is use your primary keyword and then go back in and see if you can substitute synonyms and related phrases. You've got to be around 500 words because if you're not, Google's going to skip right over you. And if you find that you're writing on the same topic on a regular basis, create one page that is your cornerstone. And every time you write a new article, link to that page as sort of the ultimate resource on your website. And avoid duplicate content. And you know, this is easier said than done. In a lot of industries, heating and air conditioning is certainly one, it's not like things change that often. It's not like you have that many different things to write about. And so the challenge becomes, how do I write about changing your filters for the 5th time without being redundant? You got to find a way to do it. You got to mix up the content, because if you write exactly the same blog post and just put a new title on it, Google is going to ding you for duplicate content, and they're going to ignore that content. When you're putting information on the page, using headlines and subheads to break up the content do two things. It helps readers figure out how to skim the page, and people really enjoy doing that. But it also helps search engines scan. When a search engine sees in the code, oh, this header is an H1 or an H2, it helps the search engine define what the page is about, figure out what the most important information on that page is. And so as you're creating your headers and your subheads on your page, use both primary keywords and phrases that are related to the primary keyword, because a lot of times people will search those related terms and find your blog post. And remember that images are content too. When you do a Google search for a word or a phrase, maybe you'll look at all, but maybe you'll look just for pictures. How do you get your picture to show up here? And should you bother? Well, today, 63% of Google image searches, when people specifically search for an image, are going to result in website traffic clicks. And 20% of all searches are now image searches. So people are looking for things by photographs. You want to optimize your image. You want to have alternative text. You want to make sure that your keywords are in the alternative text. You want to make sure that your keyword is in the name of the picture. So if I look for a gorilla, this picture will show up. Or if I look for St. Louis Zoo gorilla, this photo will show up. Relationships and reputation. Online and in the real world, you are judged by the company that you keep. And it is important that you create those good relationships. Relationships are built through links. Internal links on your website, linking from one page to another, help you build domain authority. It helps you demonstrate that you have a lot of content on your site in related topics. It also allows you, when you create that cornerstone page, to share the benefits of one page that has high page rank and transition it to other pages. But inbound links aren't enough. You have to have links coming to your website from other sites. Now, in the early days of SEO, this was all you needed. But Google is smart, and now they look at the quality, not the quantity. Are the links coming to your site from good websites or garbage websites? Your reputation is built by association. One of the things that you can do to improve your SEO and really leverage the value of links is doing what's called piggyback posting, by putting content on high authority sites. YouTube, PR Web, sites like this get a lot of traffic. When you put a video on YouTube and you link back to your website in the description, you get some of the authority from that site transferred to you. When you are posting on these other sites, make sure that you include your keywords in your titles and in your descriptions, and then link back to your site so you're associating that keyword on that site connected back to you. Anchor text. This is the phrase that you type and then you create the hyperlink back to your site. You want to avoid what they call these generic anchors. Click here, download now. Instead, you want to think about using different phrases. So a lot of times when I'm creating links to my website, I might say RoundPeg is a digital agency, or RoundPeg is a web design company, and then I will make that the hyperlink that leads and connects to my website. The benefit of that is that I have all those different words and phrases that people might be using and searching coming back to my website. If you're trying to, again, build your brand on Google and just get your brand name to search, then what you really want to do is, instead of linking to the phrase web design company, I would link from the word round peg. It's much stronger if I do both. Round peg, comma, a digital agency, and do a hyperlink that way. You can do naked anchors, just the URL, but you don't get any real SEO credit for that because Google just sees that as a direction, but it really doesn't associate any value or meaning to it. And let's stop and end on the bottom line. SEO drives traffic, but it is quality content that converts. It's not enough to win search and be #1. You have to have conversion tools on your website. Now's a great time to ask any questions, and if you have additional questions, we'd love to hear from you.